Hello, my name is John Rose, and in this video I'm going to take a look at what is the healthiest diet for humans. What is the healthiest diet for heart disease, for cancer, for diabetes, for arthritis? Does there need to be a different diet for heart disease versus cancer versus arthritis and diabetes? Is there a one diet that fits all? Do we have a species-specific diet, as every other animal has a species-specific diet? The answer to that last question is an obvious, of course it does, or we do. We're no different. We have about a dozen anatomical characteristics that clearly determine what kind of food we're supposed to eat based on our anatomy. We have anatomical limitations. I can't jump in the water down below and get any oxygen out of that water because I don't have any gills. I've got lungs. I have limitations. I can't get down there and start eating that grass because I'm not an herbivore. I have anatomical limitations. I don't have 4 stomachs. That's not my ideal food. That's not my species-specific diet. Based on our anatomy, again, there's about a dozen anatomical characteristics that every animal is going to fit into. We've got carnivores and omnivores and herbivores, grainivores, and frugivores. And the healthiest diet for every one of those animals is going to depend on their anatomical characteristics. Are they a frugivore, carnivore, herbivore, omnivore, or carnivore? Now, we've been lied to about what our species-specific diet is. In fact, they say we don't have one. They try to say we're omnivores, and some people even insist, no, we're carnivores. When you look at our anatomy, it's really clear the only food we're meant to eat. We're in the same class as all those other frugivores, the other primates. Our anatomy is the same when it comes to the equipment we have to digest food. Again, I can't jump in that water and expect to get any oxygen out of it with my lungs. We have about 10 body systems, folks, that are based on a bunch of cells. A group of cells that have specific functions form tissues. Types of tissues that perform specific function form organs. And then groups of organs and tissues form body systems. We got 10 body systems. Whenever we have a dis-ease, those body systems aren't working. And those body systems aren't working mainly due to toxicities and deficiencies. As the great Max Gerson once said, all disease is based on toxicity and deficiency. All we got to do is detoxify and rebuild. But we can't do that unless we understand what our species-specific diet is. We can't understand what our species-specific diet is if we also don't understand what the cause of disease is. I just told you what it is. Things come inside of us that don't belong there, or we're not getting in things that we need. Sunshine, for example. Look what's happening to me right now. I've got the sun beaming on me right now. My body is converting cholesterol into vitamin D. And almost every cell in my body needs vitamin D. Very important to this equation. One of the many reasons why our species-specific diet is so difficult for some people is because we no longer live where we're designed to live. We're in places where we're not even getting sunshine like we should. So we got to make adjustments or get back down to where we were meant to be. And that's where our species-specific food is growing. You hear this complaint all the time about eating a frugivore diet, a fruitarian type diet, is people are living in places where those foods don't grow abundantly. And that they got to be shipped in. Oh, that's not natural. You're right, it's not. We've got to make do for what we got right now. But the fact remains, we have anatomical limitations. We have a species-specific diet. And the ideal diet for heart disease is the same diet for cancer. It's the same diet for diabetes with a few modifications because we're damaged. If we're having trouble with blood sugar, then we have to modify what we do slightly. But we have to understand what Dr. Max Gerson was talking about. Because he understood he was healing people of cancer. And he said cancer is at the last stage of disease. If I can heal cancer, I can heal everything that comes before it. And Dr. Albert Schweitzer is one of the greatest examples of that. He was healed of life-threatening diabetes at the age of 75 when he did the Dr. Max Gerson cancer protocol. It works for cancer, it works for diabetes. It worked so well for his diabetes, Schweitzer's wife did it, it healed her tuberculosis. But isn't that a contagious disease? Remember what Pasteur said on his deathbed? He confessed, the microbe is nothing, the terrain is everything. So when Mrs. Schweitzer changed her terrain, tuberculosis wasn't a problem. And their daughter, the Schweitzer's daughter, had an unnamed incurable ulcerating skin disease that also went away when they adopted a species-specific diet. So what we have to understand that about illnesses and diet is not that complicated. Once you understand that there is a simple solution to most of our problems, you realize that that one simple solution is the solution to virtually all of our problems. Think about it. If you find a solution and you want to know whether it's the ultimate solution for that problem, you have to realize, well, does it solve the other problems? Good example to open up your minds would be looking at starvation and obesity. The ultimate solution is for these people to satisfy their needs, eat their species-specific diet. The people who are starving aren't eating at all, and then the other people who are obese, they're not eating their species-specific diet because they wouldn't be obese if they were. So it's the same solution. You see, when we don't eat the right foods, we're now putting things inside of us that don't belong there. Again, most of our diseases are coming from things inside of us that don't belong there. But we can also not be putting things that we need. We might not be getting sunshine, for example. We might not be getting B12. We might have trouble converting DHA. We could be damaged. The environment could be damaged. So our species-specific diet is the solution, but you have to understand that it only satisfies one of two groups of needs. We have 12 essential needs. Food is one of them. You can't just expect to heal your body by eating the right food. You got to satisfy all of your needs. And then if you're damaged, you got another group of needs that you have to address. You might be having blood sugar issues. You might have to stay away from fruits and fruit juice in the beginning if you have trouble with blood sugar. But what you're going to notice is as your body is recovering, as you're cleaning out that waste matter, especially with diabetes. And I did a video, I called it Type 2 Diabetes is Cellular Constipation, where when we clean our bathrooms, sugar can go into cells, it's not a problem. So with people with blood sugar issues, what doesn't work initially might work down the road as you start getting clean. Again, you have to understand the cause of disease to really understand what the healthiest diet in the world is. You have to understand that when we put things inside us that don't belong there, our body has a feedback system to let us know. If you look at the four main symptoms of long-term disease, the first stage is inflammation. We got 5 main symptoms. The symptom that confuses us is the impairment of function. Now organs don't stop working. Body systems can stop working. So many reasons why we might have a symptom might be hard to trace back to toxicity. But the toxicity could be causing an inflammation. Now we have an impairment of function. But deficiencies can cause an impairment of function also. So in order to understand what causes disease, let's take a look at these 10 body systems. Remember, a bunch of cells, tissues, and organs form body systems. Our body's nothing but a bunch of cells, 2 main fluids. Blood is part of the kitchen. It's the delivery trucks bringing the nutrition to the cells. The cells eat and they eliminate, and they have a bathroom to dump into. That's the lymph system. Those are the dump trucks. So, bunch of cells, 2 fluids, the circulatory system and the lymphatic system. Those are 2 of the 10 body systems I just mentioned. These 2 systems have a bathroom, the urinary or renal system. They clean both the blood and the lymph system. Then we have 2 main kitchens. We have a respiratory system for the oxygen, And then we have a digestive system for the other nutrients. Then our body needs to communicate. We've got two main forms of body systems that will help us communicate. We have our nervous system and we have our endocrine system. Now this is important to understand because we could be having a lot of problems where we have a tightness somewhere, a tension somewhere, and it can't relax because the body's not communicating. You could be having trouble with your endocrine glands, the body's not communicating that way, or your nervous system might not be communicating properly. Remember, if you look at our nervous system, we have a central nervous system and a peripheral nervous system. Central nervous system is real simple: retina, brain, spinal cord. Now, if you've had back injuries, your body might not be communicating very well, could it? So that's important to understand with the central nervous system. Then we have the peripheral nervous system. With the peripheral nervous system, we have the somatic nervous system, that's voluntary, and the autonomic nervous system, that's involuntary. The somatic nervous system is our muscular skeletal system. Once again, what we could have here is our body unable to communicate to itself. If we have injuries in our body, if we have what chiropractors call subluxations, they know that can contribute to the disease process because they can pinch a nerve and now the body's not communicating to itself. Remember, we start off with the two main fluids, the two trucks, the delivery trucks, the blood that's bringing food to the cells. We have the dump trucks that's taking the waste matter away. The urinary systems, the bathrooms are those. Two main kitchens, the respiratory system and the digestive system. But then we have those two systems that are helping the body communicate: the nervous system and the endocrine glands. So if an endocrine gland is inflamed, then you'll have an impairment of function, and you're not going to be able to produce the hormones so the body can communicate to itself. Our body has a very simple lock and key communication system. The enzymes and hormones are the keys, and the receptor sites are the locks. And that's all our body does to communicate, to tell it what to do. And then drugs come along and work like magic. We have inhibitors and blockers. Inhibitors kill the locks and keys, the keys, the hormones and the enzymes, or they block the lock so the body can't communicate. And it gives the illusion that the symptom disappeared when the symptom just wasn't able to manifest because we interfered with this body communication system. But some of our disease process can occur when 2 of these 10 body systems aren't working. Our nervous system can be messed up in many ways, and I've just begun talking about how the spine could have damage and the body's not communicating well. Our other parts of our skeletal system might be creating a blockage of nerve energy, so the body's not communicating. But then, when we look closer at the autonomic nervous system, we have 3 main nervous systems there. We have the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, and one dominates over the other. One is the fight or flight, the other is the rest and digest. Under stress, and I talk about this in my video, The Greatest Weapon Against Stress, and I talk about these 10 body systems in there and how this plays a role. That when we become stressed, 4 of those systems shut down so that 5 can kick in. This is important to understand because if we're under a lot of stress, then our body systems that are digesting food aren't working, so we could have deficiencies. There's a lot of ways for the things to not work. Stress is a big factor when you look at this, when you consider how the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic and the parasympathetic, if the sympathetic system is dominant, if we're in this fight or flight mode all the time, we don't get into the rest and the digest mode. Another part of this autonomic nervous system that's important to understand, especially when it comes to stress and how our body is communicating to itself, is the enteric nervous system, which is embedded in the lining membrane of our intestines. Beginning at our mouth, it goes all the way to our esophagus, all the way down to our anus. And it's important to understand this because this is like having a second brain in our guts. Interestingly, 90% of our serotonin is produced in our enteric nervous system, and 50% of our dopamine. As the saying goes, if the mind is tight, so is the colon, and vice versa. If your colon ain't happy, your brain ain't going to be happy either. Your body systems aren't going to function. So we have to understand what is the cause of disease. And to understand that, you have to understand we have 2 main bathrooms. I already told you about one of them in those very first 2 body systems, the dump trucks, that's the lymphatic system. Then I told you about the digestive system, but I didn't go into much detail there. Our digestive system begins in our mouth, that's like a blender. Our stomach is like a juicer. Our small intestines is like a warehouse. The blood is like the delivery trucks. They grab the nutrients that we convert to liquid, run it to the liver. The liver finishes processing it if it needs to, stores or distributes what the body needs and stores the rest. So the liver is like both a kitchen and a bathroom because it also filters the blood. It produces bile, which also gets rid of toxins. It's also responsible for a two-phase process the liver goes through to neutralize and eliminate toxins. I talk about that in the 3 ways our liver can detoxify the body. I'll put a link down below in the video for that. Because we have to realize if our body's damaged. We have to realize if we have to support our liver or whether we have to support our kidneys. And again, disease is based on toxicity and deficiency, and most of our problems are coming from our own waste matter. We have 2 bathrooms. The only other part of the digestive system I haven't mentioned is the main bathroom. That's our large intestines. So the best way to deal with any type of illness, folks, is take a solid food vacation. Drink nothing but juices. And what you'll do is you'll flush that main bathroom out. And the light bulb will go off within about a week because nothing's going in, but you're seeing solid stuff coming out of you day after day. And for me, it took me 3 months to get rid of a 20-pound cesspool that I had accumulated in the first 40 years of my life. But mainly in the last 10, where I was a competitive athlete and was eating massive amounts of food. But when it takes to clean that bathroom out, you clean out the other bathrooms. So most of our diseases are coming from these 2 main bathrooms. And when doctors go to school, they study the cells in the blood. But when they study the cells, they don't study the concept of totality. And Max Gerson pointed this out of his own profession. We're not taught the concept of totality. You go to an eye specialist, they have no idea what's going on in the kidneys or the colon. Any other specialist, they have no idea where the disease process is coming from. That is simply coming from those bathrooms backing up. And this is the main thing doctors don't study. They focus on what's in the blood, but they don't focus on how that lymph system stops working and what happens to it when it does, because it backs up into the tissues. They don't even understand what a lymph node is for. They think that cancer is attacking the lymph node, not realizing, no, the lymph node is attacking the cancer. Dirt doesn't attack the vacuum cleaners. The vacuum cleaners attack the dirt. And what do doctors do? They cut away our vacuum cleaners. That shows you how little they know. They take away our tonsils and our appendix. These are part of the vacuum cleaners. These are part of our lymph system, part of our lymph nodes that will convert bacteria that comes out 3 pH to a 6 pH so we can get rid of it. You have to understand the disease process, folks. Most of our diseases are coming from the toxicity side of the equation. And most of the toxicity in our bodies coming from our own waste matters. And this is why doctors don't know anything about the disease process. That's why they openly admit we don't know the cause. We don't know, we don't know, we don't know. That's why they also don't know what the best diet is for heart disease or cancer or diabetes. They don't know what our species-specific diet is. They don't understand that when we eat the wrong food, it has the wrong bowel transit time. And now things are going to accumulate. And then that's going to back up. So you have to understand, once again, what is the cause of disease. Most of it is coming from things that get inside of us that don't belong there. And most of it's our own waste matter that's part of our normal process of living, but we're not getting rid of it. And why is that? Because we're not eating our species-specific diet. And what does that do? It damages the renal system, the urinary system. It damages our kidneys. The stress can damage the adrenals. The adrenals sit on top of the kidneys and are like the control gland of the kidneys. What happens when the kidneys stop working? Impairment of function. What happens then? Our 2 fluids don't get cleaned very well, do they? Especially the lymph system. And that's where most of the disease process is coming from. The lymph system backing up. It's very simple, folks. The body recognizes what's going on. It goes through 4 main stages trying to get rid of that waste matter. The first stage is the inflammation. Again, 5 symptoms. You get a redness and a swelling, 2 fluids to the rescue. Then we have pain and fever. And then we have impairment of function. If we don't remove the cause, if our bathrooms keep backing up, or if anything else comes inside that doesn't belong there, whatever it is, it's going to ulcerate. Ulceration is the next stage. So the first 2 stages, the body's trying to get rid of something. Then it's at a point where, hey, it's starting to do damage. Things are beginning to thicken and harden now. Induration, that's the 3rd stage. And the body's trying to basically protect itself at this time. And the last stage is definitely a stage of protection where the body creates protein traps, tumors, cysts, fibroids, nodules, calcifications to encapsulate that waste matter to make sure it doesn't harm the rest of the body. The disease process isn't that complicated once you understand that it's a bodily process. It's not an entity that's attacking us. We don't need to have poisons in the name of health to attack this disease, which is what they're doing, especially with things like chemotherapy and radiation, which is what causes cancer. Because cancer comes from the acid side of this equation. Our own waste matter is 3 pH, that's 500,000 times hotter than our blood, or 50,000 times hotter than our blood. Chemotherapy is 500,000 times hotter than our blood. If you look at battery acid, that's 5 million times hotter than our blood. When you look at chemotherapy, that's just 10% diluted battery acid. So when they give us chemotherapy in the name of medicine, this is satanic, folks. Powers that be that control the education to convince doctors to do this to us have turned our hospitals into temples of sacrifice. This is hard for a lot of you to understand, but all conspiracies are satanic. The powers that be, the small group of people who own and control everything, they worship Satan. They want everything to suffer on this planet. That's what makes them feel good. They used to throw us in the fire. Now they just inject us with liquid fire. Or they burn us with radiation. It's the same thing, folks. We got to wake up and realize what they're doing to us in the name of health. We have to realize the power of our species-specific diet. We have to understand the cause of disease and realize that we are the #1 source for most of the things that are inside of us that don't belong there. And that means we can change what we do. And for a lot of us, we're going to have difficulty believing what our species-specific diet is. Partly because we don't want to believe it. And all of our so-called experts say it's no good. But if you simply test an idea as time has come, correct 5 main mistakes on a temporary basis, which is what a solid food vacation on juices will do for you, you'll then take yourself to another level where you can then be in a position to evaluate whether or not those are mistakes. And when you go back to those, your body should tell you right away, provided you went long enough. Those are mistakes because we build up a tolerance to our mistakes. A lot like smoking cigarettes, right? If you've ever smoked a cigarette before, the very first one, you cough your head off. And if you keep at it, next thing you know, you're smoking a couple packs a day, and you're not coughing at all until a couple decades later, now you're coughing up blood. We build up the same type of tolerance at a very early age to the wrong foods that we've been given. But when you take a solid food vacation for the appropriate length of time, you do several things. You flush out all that crap that's in one bathroom, which will help you flush out all the other crap in the other bathroom, provided your kidneys and adrenals are working. You're going to bump up the coherent sunlight energy in the nucleus of your cells, which feeds your sixth sense called a biophoton. You're going to reset that feedback system, which is what I'm talking about right now. We build up a tolerance to our mistakes. We got to unwind that cable that's got us addicted and habituated into doing the same thing over and over without even thinking about it. And yes, I know how hard it is to entertain that idea. So all I ask for all of my viewers, if you haven't done this yet, just take 1 week out of your life to see if what I'm saying is true. When I first came upon this knowledge and I heard all the great things it did, I really thought to myself, I would be a fool, a first-class fool, if I didn't prove this to myself. And sure enough, within 1 week, the light bulb went off over my head. Because can you see the drip? The sweat dripping from my elbows? Because I only had 5.8% of body fat. 9 pounds of fat on me. Within 1 week, I lost 5 pounds. I'm thinking, my God, how could I lose 5 pounds? I don't want to be losing my muscle. I'm an athlete. I don't want to lose this hard-earned muscle I've been working for and training for to be the best in my sport. But I think I know what's going on because I'm having a lot of stuff coming out. And here I've been documenting every minute of exercise I did every day, every ounce of food I ate. I figured out how to match the two. That's why I started to write a book on weight loss. I came up with a very complicated procedure to match all of that. Spent over 1,500 hours in the first 15 months doing that. Never occurred to me at all to actually document the kind of stuff that was coming out of me. But as a scientist, I had to know. I didn't want to be losing muscle, so I started documenting that after day 1. Now I've done this over 1,300 days in the last 27 years, and I've coached thousands of people. And people are always blown away that they could be doing this, and they're into it day after day, week after week, and for most of you, month after month, and you're still seeing stuff coming out of you, and you know it's not from the juices. There's some really old, gnarly stuff that is inside of us that will eventually go out the body once you take a solid food vacation and stop wasting all the energy digesting food. Once you do that, once again, on a temporary basis, you'll finally realize that you've been making some mistakes. You couldn't have accumulated all that garbage if you're doing everything right. Now the question is, are all 5 of those mistakes? Some of you aren't going to want to believe it. You can be just like what Oprah said, it's every alcoholic's dream to find some way to still have it. And if you're like most people, you're going to keep going back to it every now and then because your body craves what it's made out of. It's going to be hard to let go of some of these foods we were raised on. And you may never want to get rid of them completely. Who knows? But the problem is, in the beginning, it's a learning experience. And you don't want to beat yourself up if you go back to some of those old foods. But if you're lucky, you reset your feedback system so that when you go back and eat foods you're not meant to eat, your body's going to let you know, like it would have had we never eaten it and then we ate it for the first time. Think about that. If we never ate most of the crap we eat right now our entire life when we're 80 years old, and all of a sudden we ate a Twinkie or something like that, what do you think it would do to that person? Do you think they'd have a reaction? Of course they would. And right now it's happening to our little children, but our parents taught us their lies, and when our children get sick, we just take them to the doctor, and doctors don't know any of this. They have no idea that early childhood diseases are parents' mistakes because they're not eating the right food. Keeping in mind, it's not a panacea. You have to do all of the things we have to do to make sure all 10 of these body systems are working. Now, we also have an integumentary system. That's our skin, first line of defense. And remember, that's where we're making our hormones, so you might even say that might be part of our communication system. If you're not getting sunshine and your muscles are tensing up, maybe this is why your body's not communicating. You don't have enough vitamin D in you. And you can't take pills to get the same vitamin D sulfate that you get from getting sunshine. And you might be getting the best sunshine in the world, but you go home and shower and get the soap and rinse all that off. It takes 2 days to absorb the vitamin D on your skin. So make sure if you go in and shower, you don't use soap everywhere. You might want to use soap in a couple spots, but you don't want to do it where you absorb where your vitamin D is at, because again, it takes 2 days to absorb that. So there's another piece of the puzzle right now. Because we're living in places we're not meant to live, the lack of vitamin D could be causing a lot of your symptoms. And again, vitamin D by itself, vitamin D3, is not necessarily going to be the solution. Now, the other 2 body systems I haven't mentioned is the musculoskeletal system, but I briefly mentioned that as part of our nervous system. Remember, we have a central nervous system, a peripheral nervous system, voluntary and involuntary. The voluntary is the somatic nervous system. That's where our muscular and skeletal system is at. So that's one of our body systems also. The 10th body system is a reproductive system. Again, we got hormones involved in this also, don't we? But when we look at the location of where these organs are relative to our colon and urinary bladder, it's no surprise that men have problems with the prostate and women have problems with their female organs. At least that's what Dr. Norman Walker pointed out, and I agree with him. It makes a lot of sense, doesn't it? If you got a colon and a urinary bladder that's full of stuff that doesn't belong there, it's going to seep out and it's going to zap all those organs around there. What I find interesting, if you look at how the anatomy works, we have epithelial cells that line as part of our lining membrane of our membranes. As this membrane goes into my nose, it's the same membrane all throughout my body. Epithelial cells. So what happens with cancer, for example, if you're eating the wrong food and it's damaging the kidneys, high protein diets do that, then your lymph system is not going to get filtered. If you've taken a lot of antibiotics, you destroyed the bacteria inside your lymph nodes. Inside of our lymph system, we have lymph nodes that are a lot like septic tanks that have bacteria in there for the same reason. If you have a septic tank in your home, you got bacteria inside your septic tank, they warn you don't put chemicals down the drain because it will destroy the bacteria. Now that waste matter can't get it digested. Same thing happens in us, folks. When our cells eat, 3 pH, 50,000 times higher than our blood. Our kidneys can't process that. So the bacteria inside our lymph nodes convert that 3 pH to 6 pH, and now it can get rid of it. But if our kidneys are damaged, if we have too many antibiotics, then that waste matter is going to accumulate. Sometimes they'll form a big mass, a tumor. Now, if the tumor is 3 pH and that tumor touches one of our cells, it's going to burn it. It's going to have an acid burn. That's why they say 85% of all cancers are epithelial cancers, carcinomas. 85%. Why? Because cancer is an acid burn. If you have a tumor mass that's 3 pH and it touches any part of your body, it's going to burn it. But if you have enough bacteria and you converted that 3 pH to 6 pH, but your kidneys are still damaged and you end up with a tumor mass, now it's non-malignant. It's not going to burn anything when it touches it. Again, you ask a chemist what is cancer, they're going to say it's on the acid side of the chemistry. It's an acid burn. Chemotherapy, 500,000 times hotter than our blood. They're injecting liquid fire into us. They can't throw us into the fire, but they will inject it into us, or they'll radiate us. These things are known to be carcinogenic, and yet that's their solution when you have cancer. So what's the healthiest diet for cancer? It's the same thing that Dr. Max Gerson realized. It's the same diet for diabetes, arthritis, tuberculosis, skin diseases, everything. You have to understand the cause of disease. It's not complicated. 2 bathrooms are backing up. We're getting other things inside we don't belong there. You're smoking cigarettes or drinking alcohol. Those are going to cause problems. You're taking drugs for medication from the doctors. They're all liver toxic. They're all kidney toxic. They're not a solution. They interfere with the body's communication process, or they divert our attention from cleansing to dealing with that antibiotic, for example, which is why antibiotics give the illusion they work. Did a video on that. I'll put a link down below on that too. Done a lot of videos on this subject. I'll make sure to put in a pinned comment all my health-related videos. It's not complicated, folks. I know it seems like it, because the powers that be, the Satanists, are psychopaths, they're con artists, they're magicians, they're masters of illusion, and they turn doctors into magicians also. It's a sleight of hand, cause, effect. I'm going to name what you got. You've got colitis, bronchitis. Hey, all doctors are doing are naming our symptoms based on the location and the stage it's in. Itis is a Latin word meaning inflammation. Remember, there's 4 long-term stages of disease: inflammation, ulceration, induration, tumor, cysts, fibroids, nodules, calcifications. Natural hygienists call it fungation. Inflammation, impairment of function. Things aren't working right. So, if you have colitis, you have inflammation of the colon. If you have bronchitis, you got inflammation of the bronchial tubes. It's basically the same disease and inflammation. But see, they want to trick us. Don't tell them what you got. Oh, you got inflammation of the right finger and inflammation of the left toe. Could it be the same cause? Is there something inside there that's irritating things and creating inflammation? You bet there is. It's that simple. So again, all doctors are doing are naming the disease based on the stage and the location. It's a sleight of hand. Don't look over here at the cause. Look at the effect. I'm going to trick you and get you focusing on the effect. Now in Latin, we call that monus ponens. Layman's term, we're putting the cart before the horse for a problem within our control. So right now, we can realize that allopathic medicine is not the solution for at least 90% of our problems or more, because they're treating symptoms for lifestyle-related problems. They have no business having a monopoly on this, but we live in a sick world run by Satanists who control what they teach historians and doctors and nutritionists. One of the best places for you guys to start is to listen to the Norman Dodd interview. He explains how history repeats itself. He didn't explain it quite that way, but he said that our historians are bought and paid for, so they'll lie about history, so history will repeat itself. Once we understand that our historians, their education is controlled, we'll realize that our health industry, education relative to nutrition and medicine, they are too controlled. That's why our experts are not our experts. That's why disease is a mystery to all of them. They have no idea what causes disease. They don't know what our species-specific diet is. They don't know our bathrooms are backing up. They just do a sleight of hand trick. I'm going to name what you got, call it an inflammation of something. So if you've got something, look at what they say it is and look for 4 key words. Do you see the word itis anywhere? Do you see the word ulceration or ulcers anywhere? Do you see the word thickening or hardening anywhere? 3rd stage. And then the tumors, the cysts, the fibroids, the nodules, the calcifications. Omas. They attach oma at the end of it based on the body part. Melanoma, lymphoma, carcinoma. Don't you see? And remember, 85% of the cancers come from the epithelial cell, because that's the first thing these tumors inside of us touch, the lining membrane of an organ. That's why they call it after the stage it's in and the location. Oh, it's in the epithelial cells. Oh, you've got an oma, a lymphoma. Don't you see it? It's a trick. It's a trick. Don't get tricked, my friends. Get educated. Realize that there is a simple cause of disease. Realize that we have a species-specific diet just like everyone else. Realize that it's not easy for the average person to embrace this way of life because they don't know what they're missing. Realize that you have to test an idea as time has come to truly put things in perspective. Until then, you're not going to think it's a fair trade. I know. And I know most people don't want to hear this. But I'm telling you right now, if you're suffering, if you have heart disease, if you've been diagnosed with cancer, if you have crippling arthritis, if you have diabetes, these things are not death sentences, and we don't have to continue to suffer unless we give away our responsibility and accept the bullshit that doctors are telling us and nutritionists are telling us. You got to test an idea as time has come. That's as simple as it gets. And you have to realize, once again, I say this many times, that our species-specific diet is only an ideal diet in an ideal world, and we don't live there anymore. And we have these other groups of needs. Your kidneys might not be filtering. Look at your urine. If you don't see any sediment in your urine's not filtering. If you already know you got a lot of stress in your life, your adrenals might be down. I did a video, again, on the greatest weapon against stress, and I talk about strategies for this, including adaptogens, which can help normalize a hyper or hypoactive adrenal gland. Just like we have radish juice for people with thyroid issues, whether it's hyper or hypo, we know that radish juice is beneficial for people with thyroid issues. I thought, I had a bird flying at me. I think something just jumped in the water. Folks, you got to keep in mind, I've coached thousands of people. It doesn't really matter what you got in most cases unless something is damaged. That's the only time it gets tricky. We don't start there unless we know there's a problem already. What we need to do is realize we have 12 basic needs we have to satisfy. You got to start getting good sleep. You got to have positive thoughts. You got to make sure your air is clean, your water is pure, your food is natural. You got to look at all of our 12 essential needs, satisfy all those, but we got to, and then stop making all the mistakes that are related to that. And of all the mistakes we need to correct, the problem that most people have is they don't put 5 big mistakes on the top of their list. These are the 5 mistakes, our dietary mistakes, related to 5 things we mastered, and we made 5 bad applications to our food with them. We started growing food on artificial fertilizers, spraying with pesticides. That's the last mistake, the chemical revolution. Then the industrial revolution, we started processing our foods. Agricultural revolution, started eating some plants we weren't meant to eat. There's anti-nutrients in them for a reason. Got to cook them or kill them in order to eat them, so we killed anti-nutrients. Then the animals, we're not supposed to be eating animals. Look at our anatomy. Our intestines are way too long to be putting something like an animal flesh in there. And the number one mistake that caused all our problems, that's the cooking of our food. The solid food vacation on juices will correct all 5 of those mistakes. And some of you anal people out there will go, wait a second, you're processing your juices. But that's what I call a good application. Good applications to bad applications. Bad application of machines is when you strip away all the endosperm and you turn something that's whole and natural to something that's refined and processed. Brown rice, white rice. Whole wheat flour, white flour. Almost everything white's going to be bad, right? And one of my favorite sayings, the whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. This guy used to drive around with that on his truck, and he finally got arrested for it. The whiter the bread, the sooner you're dead. It's a big mistake we're making when we're making bad applications using machines. Using a juicer is not a bad application. In fact, people will say, well, it's not natural, but wait a minute. Primates do that in nature. Our closest relative, the bonobos, that eat 98% fruit when it's available, will start eating more other vegetation when fruit's not available, but they don't chew everything and swallow it. They chew it and spit it out, called wedging. That's what a juicer does for humans. Allows us to wedge in a much easier format. And the beauty about using this machine, especially when we juice a bunch of vegetables, is that we take away all that energy it would take to process that. Vegetables are much more mechanical to process than fruits. They're not the cleansers. To heal the body, we normally have to put our body in a cleansing mode. But we also have to rebuild. Remember, disease based on toxicity and deficiency. There's two main issues. That's why I like the juices, because we address the toxicity issue and the deficiency issue at the same time. And some of our problems are only deficiency related, although that's very rare. Because even most deficiencies are due to toxicities, although not all of them. So for some of us, it's going to be a little more complicated in order to get healthy. For some of us, we might need to modify our species-specific diet slightly. We might need to take a few supplements, and those supplements are not an indictment on our species-specific diet. They're an indictment on the fact that we haven't been living the right way for a long time. In fact, the very first mistake we made happened 60,000 years ago. That's the cooking of our food. That's when we lost our golden ages. That's what changed our mentality, because it destroyed the sunlight energy that we use to feel one with everything. This is the reason why we struggle so much, and that's why you have to realize that the ultimate solution for heart disease and cancer and diabetes and arthritis is actually the ultimate solution for war, crime, and violence. Because problems where we have limited control will go away, most of them, when we realize how to solve problems that are 100% within our control. Because there's a reason why we have war, crime, and violence. We're sick. It's another symptom. Illnesses and ill behaviors are purely, simply part of our feedback system, folks. We have a belief system, we make lifestyle choices, and we got a feedback system that's trying to tell us how well we're living. And most of the time, it's because of our belief system. We don't have the knowledge of how to live. And for most of us, that's all we need, but some of us might need to have knowledge of how to adapt, because certain parts of our body might not be working right. Some of our body systems might not be working. Our central nervous system might not be working because we might have had some spinal injuries, or we might have had some other skeletal problems. Now, I would like to point out at this time, the first seminar I went to was by Dr. Ralph Sinkay. He has a fasting retreat up around Austin, I think it's Buda, Texas. I saw him in 1990, and he starts off his presentation as saying, "I'm Dr. Ralph Sinkay, I'm a chiropractor, and my profession's a scam." But he proceeded to say, or continued to say, that that there's a lot to the body being out of alignment, but the problem is they don't know what causes the body to be out of alignment. So they will adjust you so your body will be in alignment. Now you have your communication system working okay, but then it goes right back out of alignment. And I know that most bad alignment comes from tight muscles pulling the body out of alignment. If you get in an injury, for example, you're going to have an area of poor circulation. The toxins are going to settle in that area, and that's why you're going to continue to feel pain in that area. And that can also continue to pull the body out of position. So you have to realize that with old injuries, you can have tight muscles or areas where you have waste matter that's going to pull the body out of alignment. That's why Ralph Sinkay said chiropractic is a scam, because they don't know why the body goes out of alignment. And yes, getting adjusted will make you feel better and make things work, but it's usually only temporary, because they don't address the underlying cause. A good friend of mine, Kenny Owens, developed this muscular therapy, deep tissue muscular therapy system decades ago, and now it's pretty much worldwide. He trained all the top people here in Houston that know how this technique works. He's worked on all the top athletes, and he knows that muscles get tight and they pull the body out of alignment. And he told me that almost all joint pain comes from a tight muscle coming from somewhere. So this is part of the damage we've done to ourselves. We start with removing the primary causes, satisfy all your needs, correct all of our mistakes, but make sure to put those 5 big dietary mistakes on the top of the list. That's what we're not doing. And the best way to do that is to start off with a solid food vacation on juices. Make sure you do everything else you're supposed to do. Then once you finish that, then take a look at your species-specific diet and see how you do. And if things don't work out, then you have to realize, well, why aren't they working out? Most of you are already going to know. Well, I'm up here in England. We're not getting any sunshine. Or, oh, I had this car accident. My back is all messed up. Body's not communicating. Or, when I urinate, my urine is clear, so my kidneys aren't filtering. So if your kidneys aren't filtering, you're never going to heal, right? What if your liver is damaged? Max Gerson says you can't get cancer unless your liver is damaged. So when you take a solid food vacation, I mentioned there are 3 things we have to do on that. Number 1, give the body everything it needs. I explain how to do that in my seminar and other backup videos. Number 2, since we're doing something so aggressive, we want to support our organs of elimination. The 3rd thing is to support our body in case it's damaged. And this is where I'm getting at right now. There's no matter where you're at, whether you're on a solid food vacation, you finished a vacation, or you haven't started with one, but you're still trying to go with a species-specific diet, you have to realize you might need to support your body if your body's not working. If these 10 body systems aren't working, especially the renal system, if your kidneys aren't working, if your adrenals aren't working, if you're under a lot of stress, the body might not be communicating to itself. And you can have all types of symptoms related to that. You might be clean everywhere else. Some of you, I'm sure, are scratching your head thinking, how can I have this symptom? I get this tension in my heart. What's going on? It could be a deficiency. Magnesium plays a role in a lot of these issues. Again, you have to look at everything. Take a look at what the medical people say. Try to identify if it's an itis or an ulceration or a thickening or hardening, they mention that, or if there's a tumor or cyst, and they call it omas. Realize what stage you're in. You realize the solution is always the same. You got to get rid of the source. In most cases, it's our own waste matter, but it could be waste matter from somewhere else. You could be doing drugs, prescription or recreation, that are damaging your kidneys and your adrenals and your liver. And now those systems aren't working. So anytime a body system is not working, anytime an organ system is not working, you might need to support it on a temporary basis. But remember, a lot of times when systems aren't working, it's not just because of a deficiency, it's because of the inflammation. When you take a solid food vacation, inflammations go away very quickly. We can clean the blood very quickly on a solid food vacation. That lid system may take a little bit longer, especially if your kidneys are compromised or your adrenals are compromised. So you have to become your own doctor. You have to realize that you can do more for your own health and well-being than any hospital, any drug, any exotic medical device, any hospital anywhere on this planet, unless you're in an accident and there's an emergency of some sort. Otherwise, most of our problems are self-inflicted. It may have taken 5, 6, 7 decades before we've had symptoms manifest. It may have only taken a couple of decades for some of you younger people because we're being born genetically weaker all the time. And that means we can't reverse everything overnight. But you'll be surprised how fast you'll see results on a solid food vacation. I've estimated that we see results 10 times faster on a solid food vacation on juices than we do on our species-specific diet. And as long as you're still eating food, you're going to struggle eating our species-specific diet. And that's why the solid food vacation is an idea as time has come. It not only allows more people to do it, but it gives us back the control that's been taken away from us because our brains are stuck in our taste buds, aren't they? It's a battle between our brains, that clever neocortex up there, versus our reptilian brain, our taste buds. And the sad thing here, folks, is that short-term pleasure usually always wins out over long-term pain. But if you're at a stage right now where you've been in pain for way too long, it's time to do something about that. It's time to test these ideas out. Prove to yourself that what I'm saying is true. Take a solid food vacation. Take a look at what's coming out of you. Take a look at your urine. Take a look at your waste matter. I dare you to document it so you can really appreciate what's going on. Not very many of my students are willing to do that. I was, because I'm a scientist. I needed to know. I only had 5.8% body fat, and I started losing weight. I had to know, am I losing my muscle, or am I pooping that crap, my weight, off of me? And that's exactly what I did. Had a 20-pound cesspool. Took me 3 months to get rid of by drinking nothing but juices, and it was the most exciting 90 days of my life. I didn't even think I had a disease because I didn't have any discomfort, but I did have a disease. If I would have went to a doctor, they would have said, you had diverticulosis. I had over 100 blowouts on my colon wall. Oh, cool. A bunch of birds flying over there caught my eye. And I know because I'm documenting everything coming out of me. And I see the stuff coming out of me, I go, hey, that looks just like these pictures I've seen of people with these herniated blowouts. It's like a piece of a puzzle came right out of me. I could take it right up there and look at these little pictures. They go, yep, that's what it is. I know. I've explained this before, and I did a special video on how to prevent diverticulitis. I'll put a link down below on that where I explain this in a little bit more detail. And my condition hadn't reached the diverticulitis stage where there was pain, so I wasn't aware of it. But I was a disease waiting to happen. And yet I didn't have any other health problems that I was aware of. And yet it's still the most exciting thing I've ever done. For the rest of you guys who are suffering, embrace this message. Watch how fast your problems go away. Take an active role in trying to figure out these 10 body systems to see if some of these systems are compromised in any way. And if so, you need to support them. It's not that complicated. You can become your own doctor. You can become your own scientist simply by keeping track of what you're doing, how you feel, and what you're going to notice, folks. Within 1 week, a light bulb will go off. Because the average woman is going to lose 7 pounds, the average man 10 pounds, and the light bulb goes off because things are still coming out. And they keep coming out for weeks and months on. Until finally the aha moment comes. And that happens when we get to a point where all those things we've been struggling with for decades are finally gone. That's when we realize that all these so-called experts were totally clueless. They didn't know what was causing the problems. They didn't have any solutions. They only made things worse. When you took charge and flushed out those 2 bathrooms, you saw your problems go away. For some of you who have more complicated issues, you won't see those problems go away until you address your liver, or you address your kidneys, or you address your adrenals, whatever those cases might be. Or there may be some actual deficiencies you may need to be aware of. Magnesium, iodine. There's all types of things that can go wrong based on either having something in there that doesn't belong there or something that should be in there that isn't there. And I'm thinking vitamin D sulfate is one of the biggest problems a lot of you people are having way up north who can't get the sunshine they need. It's part of our communication process. So, what is the healthiest diet in the world for humans? It's our species-specific diet. Oh, but we're all different, John. What works for one doesn't work for the other. Yes, there is a uniqueness of disease, but there's also a oneness of disease. The oneness of disease comes from our 2 bathrooms backing up. It comes from the concept of toxicities and deficiencies. The uniqueness of disease, and the only thing that complicates things, is the fact that we're damaged individually a little bit differently. Although, very few people are all by themselves. You may have hundreds of thousands or millions of people having the same damage that you have, which is what confuses everything. Got a kick out of this article by U.S. News. All the experts concluded, based on the 41 diets that they analyzed, well, obviously there's no one diet that fits all. Well, it's because when you looked at the raw food diet, you didn't look at it the right way. You lumped in animal products with plant products, number one big mistake. Then you didn't actually study the whole concept. You just studied people's articles that were written on it. You can tell this was not thoroughly researched by these so-called experts when they criticized and rated the raw food diet down at the bottom. Folks, we're not supposed to cook our food. It changes the food. It changes us. It's the biggest mistake we ever made. When you factor that piece of the puzzle into the equation, our species-specific diet becomes even more obvious. If you're not going to cook your food, how are you going to eat grains? Now, some things you can sprout. And I tried that route for a while. Excuse me. And I found I didn't digest them very well. But in the beginning, as a transition for a lot of people, they can be used. And according to Dr. Flora, who was Ann Wigmore's assistant, she said, grains are not for leaders. Others can sprout those type of things, but if you want to become a leader, if you want to become a trim tab to society, you got to be on top of your game. You got to limit the foods to eat based on our anatomy and how they were given to us in nature, unless we have to use one of those 5 things we mastered on a temporary basis to make a good application to it and modify what they used to say was the best preparation for a better way of life, a solid food vacation on water. Nowadays, we need to modify that too. Do it with juices instead. Address the issues of deficiencies at the same time. Do it so that you don't have to take a vacation from life. You can continue to work. You can maintain your responsibilities to your family and everyone else. You don't have to take a vacation from life on a solid food vacation of juices. And if you do it the right way, your performance is going to improve, not get worse. That's one of the best things about a solid food vacation. It saves so much energy from digesting food that we start feeling euphoric within no time at all. Around the 3rd week, you're going to feel like someone injected you with heroin or something. I wouldn't know, I've never done heroin, but that's how good you feel. And I know I've done this, again, a lot in the last 27 years. I have done this more than anybody else I know. I have a lot of personal experience doing this. And I have a lot of professional experience. I've coached lots of people. And I know when they get around that 3rd week mark, they start saying, God, I feel so good, I don't think I ever want to eat again. And of course, that's not an option. This is only something we do on a temporary basis, so we can have a better understanding of what is the healthiest diet in the world. What is our species-specific diet? And is that all I have to do? Hopefully, that's all you have to do. And again, for most of us, that is all we have to do. Whichever the case might be, we have to figure out how we're damaged. We can take advantage of iridology. You can look at eye charts on the internet, take pictures of your eyes. You can look around 5 and 6 o'clock on one eye and 6 and 7 o'clock on the other eye to see the condition of your kidneys or your adrenals, to see if those need support. Or you can simply capture your urine and make sure you see some sediment in your urine. And if you don't, then you know you need to help support those organs of elimination. The greatest thing about this is for the vast majority of us, it's not that complicated. For the vast majority of us, all we have to do is take a solid food vacation on juices, correct those 5 mistakes on a temporary basis. Then make sure we correct them on a permanent basis. Adopt our species-specific diet in its natural raw state. Satisfy all of our needs. And then continue on the hero's journey by giving me a thumbs up on every video you watch so that more people will watch these videos. Share my videos to make sure that some of these videos have a chance to reach a larger audience. Subscribe to my channel if you haven't done so yet, and hit that notification button so you'll know when I have new videos coming out. Keeping in mind, I've done a lot of videos over the last several years, and some of y'all have gone back, I think, and seen some of these older videos. So take advantage of those older videos. I've got a lot of good videos out there worth watching. Excuse me. And this is an important message, as you can see. Our experts in health and nutrition are not our experts. They don't know anything. When they tell us what a healthy diet is, they have no clue what our species-specific diet is. And most of us are going to struggle until we take a solid food vacation. But once we take that solid food vacation, once we realize what our species-specific diet is, once we understand how important this message is and now we've got purpose in our life, I can guarantee you, that's going to be the time when you're in for a treat.